It has been months now. You know they are gone. And still, your thumb finds their name in your phone before your brain catches up. You start typing. You reach for the joke only they would get. For half a second, they are alive again, and then the floor drops out from under you all over again. You think that reach is a glitch, a broken wire in a brain that hasn't gotten the message. It isn't. That exact reach is 100,000 years old. In a cave in Israel, someone laid the antlers of a deer over the body of a dead child. Antlers you cannot eat, cannot burn, cannot use to survive. In a world where every calorie was a fight, someone spent that energy on a thing that meant nothing except everything. So here's the question this video answers. Did ancient humans mourn their dead? Did the people we picture as grunting and surviving and nothing more feel the floor drop out too? Stay with me, because by the end, you'll know why grief, the most useless feeling evolution ever built, is the one thing that kept your kind alive. Let's start with you, because grief feels like the loneliest thing in the world. When you lose someone, it feels like no one in history has ever hurt exactly this way. The world keeps moving, traffic keeps flowing, people keep laughing in line at the coffee shop, and you stand there thinking, how does the planet not notice? But you are not the first. You are nowhere near the first. You are the latest link in a chain of mourners that stretches back further than you can imagine into a time before cities, before fields, before anyone wrote a single word down. To find the start of that chain, go to a cave in what is now Israel. The place is called Qafzeh. The time is around 100,000 years ago. And inside that cave, archaeologists found a child who had died. Someone had buried that child on purpose, with care, the small body arranged. That alone tells you something. A body that's simply abandoned doesn't get arranged. It gets left where it falls. This child was placed, positioned, handled by hands that decided where the body should go and how it should lie. But it's what they placed on the child that stops your breath. Resting deliberately over the child's body were the antlers of a fallow deer. Now think about that. Antlers are not food. They are not a tool you need. They are not warmth, not shelter, not survival. They serve no practical purpose at all. Which means someone, 100,000 years ago, took something with no use and chose to lay it on a dead child. This is the oldest, purely symbolic grave object we have ever found. The oldest evidence of a human doing something for no reason except that it meant something. And feel how strange that is, in a world where every calorie was a fight. Every action cost energy they could not spare. And one of them spent that energy on a gesture that fed no one, sheltered no one, kept no one alive. They spent it on meaning. Picture the moment, and I'll be careful, because we cannot read a dead person's mind. But we can imagine. Someone stood over the body of a child, maybe their own. The work of the day was waiting. And instead of just walking away, they stopped. They found the antlers. They knelt and placed them and arranged them just so. We will never know what was in their head, but we know what their hands did. And hands tell the truth that mouths can't. There was red ochre there too, a rusty earth pigment that shows up again and again at these ancient graves. We don't fully know what it meant to them, and we should be honest about that. People will tell you ochre proves a belief in an afterlife. That's a guess, a tempting one, but a guess. Maybe it stood for blood, for life, for the warmth that had drained out of the body. What we can say plainly is this. Someone treated a dead child as something that mattered, something worth marking. And that impulse, the one that says this one was not nothing, that impulse is the seed of everything that follows. And if that's true, then the thing you felt this morning when your thumb found their name, that ache, it didn't start with you. It was already old when those antlers were placed. The grief you carry came pre-installed, handed down a chain 100,000 links long, and you are simply the one holding it now. Before we go deeper, and we are going much deeper, do me one favor. If you've ever felt that phantom reach, that half second where someone gone feels alive again, subscribe. This channel is about the strange, ancient wiring underneath the most human things you do, the feelings you assume are just you, that turn out to be 100,000 years in the making. Subscribe and stay. Because the next grave we visit is going to hurt, and it's going to be beautiful. Here's the strange part about the evidence. The further back you go, the deeper it cuts. You'd expect older to mean cruder, colder, more like animals, and less like you. It doesn't work that way. The deeper we dig, the more tenderness we keep finding, in places we were sure would be empty of it. So let's go to Italy. The place is a cave called Candide, the time around 27,500 years ago. And here we find a young man archaeologists nicknamed the Prince. He was a teenager. Not a wise elder, not a fallen leader. A teenager. And before he died, something horrific happened to him. He was mauled by a bear. A teenage boy, in a world with no medicine, no surgeons, no antibiotics, mauled by a bear. The evidence suggests he didn't die instantly. He hung on for days, a young body trying to heal wounds that today would put you in intensive care. And in those final days, they did not leave him. Somebody tended him. Somebody brought him water. Somebody stayed beside him through the nights, in a world where every mouth had a cost and every hour of care was an hour not spent surviving. They chose him anyway, and when he was gone, they did not simply move on. Look at how they sent him off. They laid him on a bed of red ochre. They had sewn onto his cap hundreds of perforated seashells, each one drilled by hand, with stone tools, by firelight, hundreds of times over. Beside him, 4 batons carved from antler. This was hours and hours of human labor, poured into a body that could no longer give anything back. That cap of shells is a love letter you can still hold in your hand 27,000 years later. Here's the pattern I want you to notice. The lavishness of the burial scales with the horror of the death. The more brutal the ending, the more they piled on. Does that sound familiar? Think about the funerals that wreck you the most. The young, the sudden, the cruel. Those are the ones where people pour everything in. The flowers, the words, the gathering that overflows the room. When something is stolen too soon and too cruelly, we throw everything we have at the goodbye, as if sheer effort could rebalance the unfairness of it. That instinct was alive in a cave 27,000 years ago. It's the same instinct that fills a room with flowers for a child today. Now I'm going to take you somewhere even older, to a person who teaches us something the others can't. Go to Iraq, a cave called Shanidar. The time, around 50,000 years ago. And here we don't even meet one of us. We meet a Neanderthal. Sit with that word, because you've been taught to use it as an insult. The hunched brute. The dim cousin who lost. Forget all of that, because the man we're about to meet rewrites the whole picture. His name to science is Shanidar 1. And his body is a record of survival against everything. His right arm was withered and likely amputated. He walked with a limp. He had injuries to his skull that probably left him deaf and may have cost him sight in one eye. He was, by the brutal math of the Stone Age, useless for the hunt. A man who could not throw a spear with 2 hands, could not hear danger coming, could not run from it if it came. Every cold calculation of survival says this man is a drain, the kind of burden a desperate group leaves behind so the rest can live. And he lived for years like that. He lived for years, which means his community fed him, protected him, walked at his pace when the group moved, which means the whole group moved slower because of him. And this wasn't one heroic act, one grand rescue you could tell a story about. It was the opposite. It was 1,000 small, boring, unglamorous choices. The choice to share food again tonight. The choice to wait for him again today. Somebody chose him, and then chose him again, and again, until the choosing became just who they were. And that is the key that unlocks all of this. Because here is the truth about grief that nobody tells you. You can only mourn someone you chose to keep alive. Care comes first. Grief is just the bill that comes due for the caring. The Neanderthals who carried Shanidar 1 through years of helplessness, they were not just being kind. They were building the exact bond that, when it broke, would become grief. Every day they kept him alive, they were also making his eventual death more devastating. Quick pause, because I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments which one is hitting you hardest. The child with the antlers, the mauled teenage prince, or the one-armed man his people refused to leave behind. Drop it below. I read them, and I think about them. Now I have to tell you about Shanidar 4, because it's the most famous part of this story, and because being honest about it matters more than telling you a beautiful lie. For decades, there's been a tale called the flower burial. The story goes like this. At Shanidar, in the soil around a Neanderthal grave, researchers found clumps of ancient pollen. And the dream was irresistible. It meant they had buried their dead on a bed of wildflowers. Someone climbed a hillside, picked blooms, and laid them around a body. Tenderness, 50,000 years ago, in a creature we'd written off as a brute. But here's the thing. The pollen is real. The flowers might not be. Since the late 1990s, scientists have raised one stubborn alternative: burrowing bees. Certain bees tunnel through the ground and stash pollen, and they may have carried it down into that grave long after the burial. No human ritual required. So we don't get to call the flower burial a fact. It's contested. It might be the most touching funeral in prehistory, or it might just be bees, tunneling, carrying pollen down long after anyone grieved. You came here for a beautiful answer, and I'm handing you a maybe. But real science means sitting in that discomfort instead of grabbing the answer you want. And here's the reversal. We don't need the flowers. We already have a one-armed man kept alive for years, a mauled teenager covered in shells, a child crowned with antlers. The case for ancient grief doesn't rest on a maybe. It rests on bone and care and effort you can still measure in the dirt. Lose the flowers and the case still stands, rock solid. And then there's the one that breaks the whole model. Go to South Africa, to a different species entirely called Homo naledi. The time, possibly around 300,000 years ago. Their brains were tiny, about the size of an orange, roughly a third the size of yours. By every old rulebook, this is not a creature that should be capable of anything we'd call a funeral. Caring for the dead, we always told ourselves, is a big brain thing. And in 2023, a team made an explosive claim. They argued that Homo naledi deliberately carried their dead deep into a pitch-black cave and buried them there. Now stop and put yourself in that cave. Picture squeezing your body through a crack in the rock so narrow you cannot turn your head. Total darkness. No torch you can hold, because both hands are full. And you are dragging a dead weight behind you, deeper into the earth, feeling for the next gap with your fingers, your own breath loud in your ears. If naledi did this on purpose, somebody chose that. Somebody decided a body was worth crawling into a place that could become its own grave. And if that's true, it shatters everything. It would mean caring for your dead isn't about big brains at all. It would mean the reach you feel is not a product of your fancy modern mind. It's something more primal, sitting underneath the mind entirely. But I won't tell you it's true, because nobody knows that yet. The claim is heavily disputed. The evidence is fiercely argued over, and the debate is nowhere near settled. So hold it the right way, not as a fact. As a question, hanging in the dark of that cave, refusing to be answered. Maybe the reach you feel for the dead is older than your species, older than big brains, older than almost everything that makes you you. So let's come back up out of the caves, back to you, and answer the real question hiding under the first one. Not just did they grieve, but why does grief exist at all? Why would evolution, which is supposed to be ruthless, build a feeling this useless and this devastating? Grief doesn't bring anyone back. It doesn't feed you. It actually makes you worse at surviving for a while. It steals your sleep, kills your appetite, fogs your thinking, pulls you toward a person who can't be reached. A purely ruthless design would have deleted grief long ago. So what is it for? Here's the answer that ties every grave together. Grief is the price of love. And love, it turns out, was survival technology. Think about what you've seen. A community that kept a one-armed deaf man alive for years. A community that stayed beside a mauled boy through his final days. People who sewed shells onto a dead child's cap by firelight. Those bonds were not soft little luxuries. They were the thing that kept fragile, slow, clawless humans alive in a world that was actively trying to kill them. We had no fangs worth mentioning. We couldn't outrun much. Alone, a human is one of the easiest meals on the savannah. What we had was each other. The groups that loved hard enough to carry the wounded and feed the helpless and refused to leave anyone behind, those are the groups that survived. The ones who abandoned their weak didn't make it to become anyone's ancestors. Love wasn't the decoration on top of survival. Love was the engine. And here's the catch. You cannot have a bond strong enough to make you carry a dying boy and not have it hurt like hell when he's gone. Love and grief are the same wire. You don't get one without the other. The pain is the receipt that the bond was real. If it didn't hurt, the love was never the kind that kept our ancestors alive. So let me show you what that wire actually does, in you, right now. We can't crawl inside a Neanderthal's skull and feel what he felt. We're inferring, always, from bone and behavior. But here is what we can say about the thing happening in your own chest. Somewhere inside you is a system built to do one job: find the people you love and keep them close. When someone you love is out of sight, a quiet alarm goes off and it sends you to look for them. You look up when the door opens. You scan the crowd for their face. You reach for the phone. That system has run, flawlessly, your whole life. And then they die, and the alarm doesn't know. Nobody told the wiring. So it keeps firing into an empty room, sending you, again and again, to find a person it still expects to find. That phantom reach is not a malfunction. It is the most loyal part of you, still doing its one job, still searching, long after there's no one left to find. And here's the thing to really hold on to. That ache is not the system failing. It is the system working. The reach is the proof. The bond was strong enough to keep someone alive. You were only haunted by the people you would have carried. So picture this. Go back to that cave in Iraq, Shanidar, but on an ordinary morning. No grand ritual, no grave yet, just a day. There is no hunt for the one-armed man. He brought nothing back because he can't. And someone sets food down in front of him anyway. A man who could not throw a spear, could not hear a predator, could not run. And they feed him. And the next morning, they do it again. And the morning after that. That is where grief is actually born, not at the graveside. Here, in the quiet, in the choosing, in the food set down in front of a man who has nothing to give for it. Every one of those ordinary mornings was tightening a knot that one day would have to be cut. They were not just keeping him alive. They were writing, in advance, the exact shape of how much it would hurt to lose him. So let's go all the way back to the antlers on the child, and your thumb finding their name this morning. The hand that placed the antlers and the hand that reaches for the phone are doing the exact same thing. Refusing, just for a second, to accept the absence. Saying, with the body, this one mattered. The pain you feel when you lose someone is not a defect in you. It is not weakness, and it is not you failing to move on. It is one of the oldest feelings on Earth, a feeling that walked into caves with people who weren't quite people yet, and laid antlers on a child, and sewed shells by firelight, and refused to leave a broken man behind. That ache is the cost of being a creature built to love, and the love was never optional. It was how your kind survived long enough to make you. You are grieving because somewhere down the line, people who loved that hard outlasted the people who didn't. You are the descendant of the ones who couldn't let go, so the reaching will keep happening. And now you know what it is. Not a glitch. It's the most human thing there is, except it started before we were even fully human. The next time it happens, maybe it won't feel quite so lonely, because you'll know you're standing in a line 100,000 years long, doing the thing your kind has always done. You are not broken when you grieve. You are doing the single oldest thing your kind has ever done. If this gave you a new way to hold something heavy, stay with this channel, subscribe, because every week we go back into the deep past to find out why you're like this, why the feelings you think are just yours are really inheritances 100,000 years old. Next time, why you can't stop a stranger's yawn from pulling one out of you, and why that involuntary copy might be the invisible thread that lets separate humans feel like one body. The same wiring that made them carry the wounded is hiding in the most automatic thing your face does. Once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. You are not the first to feel any of this. You are just the latest to find out where it came from. I'll see you in the next one.